In this video, I'm going to show you track lanes and comping in Reaper. Now the purpose of this video is to go over the new feature in Reaper 7 for track lanes and comping. If you're using an older version, these features aren't going to work for you. And also, this is a fairly complex addition to Reaper. And because of that, it's probably going to take multiple videos to cover it all. So make sure you subscribe to this channel as we go more into depth on this feature. So in this video, we're just going to cover the basics so you can get going using track lanes and comping right away. So for project setup here, and I want to record a vocal. We have a track set up here. We'll put it in record. I'll set the input where my mic is plugged in, not this mic, but this mic. Let's record some vocals.
Hey, you couldn't see it coming. You might have thought it, but you couldn't change it.
And let's say we wanted to record another pass. By default, Reaper's going to create another take, like this.
Hey, you couldn't see it coming.
Giving us two takes on these phrases that we could choose between by hitting the T key for take 1 and take 2 on the vocal. This has always existed in Reaper. But in Reaper 7, we now have another option. If we go up here to the options menu, on the new recording that overlaps existing media items, here's the default we just went over, but now we can choose to add lanes. Let's choose this. Let's record another pass now.
Hey, you couldn't see it coming. You might have thought it, but you couldn't change it.
And now we have, instead of takes, we have separate lanes. Lane 1 and lane 2. That again, we could choose between by just hitting this button. Let's record another pass, which will create another lane.
Hey, you couldn't see it coming. You might have thought it, but you couldn't change it.
And now we have 3 lanes. Lane 1, 2, and 3. And to choose or listen between them, we can just hit this button. Now we're hearing lane 1,
Hey,
or lane 2,
hey,
or lane 3.
hey.
And if we just prefer this lane in total, we can just right-click it, go to Delete Lanes, and delete all lanes that are not playing. And that removes the other ones, just leaving us with a preferred lane. But we could do a lot more than this, working phrase by phrase using comping. Let's undo that. And instead, let's go to this button here and right-click it and choose comping and comp into new empty lane. Choose this. Reaper creates a new lane, which we can comp into. Right now, if we play it, we don't hear anything because we need to choose which lane we want. And notice over here around the button, it's a goldish brown, letting us know we're comping into this lane. If we double click it, it turns comping off, and we're back to choosing lanes right from here. But if we double click it again, it goes back to comping mode, which means now we can swipe comp down here. Notice the cursor changes to a comping tool. Now we can just drag in any lane, and that's the lane that's going to be chosen based on the comping area we create. So we drag from here to here, and now we're going to hear this lane, although we see the result of it up here.
Hey,
Or this lane, but now we could do it phrase by phrase. If we want to work on the first phrase, we could define it here and listen to each pass one at a time.
hey,
by clicking in the area
Hey,
to hear that pass or lane.
hey,
And if we like this one, now it's chosen and we can move on. And we can create different sections known as comp areas where we could choose between. Choose each one of these lanes like this, or use the T key. Type T to jump to lane 2 or 3 or back to 1, or hit Shift T to go backwards, forward or back. So now, if we chose this piece, which is really this piece, we can now comp this phrase in context, meaning we'll hear this one going into our next choice, so we can make sure they work together.
hey, you couldn't see it coming.
Hit T, so we can hear lane 2 instead.
Hey, you couldn't see it coming.
Let's say we like that one, we can move on.
Coming, you might have thought it.
Again, we could select it like this, or just type T.
Coming, you might have thought it. Coming, you might have thought it, but you couldn't change it. But you couldn't change it.
Let's say we like these choices. We can get rid of the other lanes by right-clicking, go to Delete Lanes, and choose to delete all the lanes that are not playing, which were the 3 source lanes we were choosing from. Now, usually, you don't want to do that, just in case you want to recomp later. So instead, we could double-click this button. Now we're no longer in comping mode. So instead of creating comping areas, left dragging is going to move our items, as it normally does in Reaper. But now we can collapse this so we only see this one comped lane. Right-click this button, show only lane. Now our comp track is collapsed, only taking up the room of one typical Reaper track. And because we turn comping off, we can't accidentally choose the other lanes. If we type T, it does nothing. So we won't accidentally mess up our comp. But we can always go back by right-clicking the button and turn this off. Seeing our lanes, double-click to go back to comping and choose with our mouse or the keyboard shortcut T some other options on each phrase. And we're happy with it, just double-click to get out of that mode, right-click, and show just this lane. Now, even though we're only seeing this one comped lane, we can still comp from here, as these lanes still exist. They're just hidden. Because underneath, we still have these choices remembered, and the lanes where they came from. So we could show only one lane, and make sure we're still seeing the brownish gold color, letting us know the comping is still on. Otherwise, we can just double-click to turn it back on. So we're back in comping mode, and we can still use the T key to switch to different lanes. Do the same over here, as the comp area is based on where we put our mouse. And we're done, just double-click it, and comping is off. But we could also do this without using the T key. We could double-click it to turn comping back on. If we go down here to the bottom of the item, notice these arrows appear. We can switch lanes from here. Go down or up to switch the lane we're going to choose. Go to this one, lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, and so on. Go back to lane 1 or 2 or 3. So we could do it with the arrows. We're just using the T key. But again, if we double click the button, we're no longer in comping mode. So if we hit the T key, it doesn't switch our lanes, and we're not going to see the arrows down here. So it will look and behave just like a typical Reaper track. So that's pretty much it. That's track lanes and comping in Reaper. Hope you learned something. Hope you could use it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bingo, boys, let's go.
Bye.